I never thought turning 70 would end up being a lesson in abandonment. I was alone in the living room, under a sign that read Happy 70th Birthday, with balloons already beginning to droop and an untouched cake on the table. I had worked so hard. I baked with my own hands, decorated with my daughter's favorite colors. I even wore my sky blue dress, the one she always said made me look more lively. I waited for someone to knock on the door, for the bell to ring, for my phone to vibrate at least. But nothing. Silence was the only thing that kept me company that day. I thought maybe they were on their way, delayed, planning a surprise. I deluded myself with the hope of every passing minute. But then I saw the photo. My daughter, her husband, his in-laws, and his cousins, all smiling on the deck of a cruise ship with the blue sea in the background. The post read, "Here with my beautiful family." Beautiful family, not a word about me. And there I was, alone in my house with a cake no one would taste. I froze, staring at my phone screen. How could they be celebrating without me? How dared she call them her beautiful family when, for years, I was the one holding up the foundations of her life? Indignation rose like fire in my throat, but I didn't cry. No, tears don't come as easily as they used to. Does a person dry up inside with so many disappointments? I started mentally replaying all the birthdays, Christmases, teachers' days, Mother's Days, any excuse to be together. All the ones I organized, cooked, decorated, and paid for. And this is how they repay me. I approached the cake and swiped a bit of the sweet, cloying vanilla frosting with my finger, like the lies I've swallowed for years. I don't know when I began cleaning up. I stored the balloons in a bag, the napkins in a drawer, and blew out the candles, though no one had made a wish. As I did, I realized something. This wasn't an oversight or an accident, it was a decision. Why would someone post a photo like that without thinking? Why write "my beautiful family" without knowing who was left out? They hadn't forgotten me, they didn't want me there anymore. But you know what? They did me a favor. That night, as I packed the decorations back into their box, I knew something inside me had changed. I was done begging for love or attention. The silence of that birthday was the clearest scream I'd ever heard. If they thought I'd sit waiting for an apology, they were in for a surprise. I wouldn't say another word, but I wouldn't pay another cent either. That uncut cake would be the last thing they'd see me give them. That night, I didn't sleep. I went to bed early, of course, as always, wearing my cotton nightgown with daisies embroidered on the collar, but I couldn't close my eyes. The image glowed on my phone screen like a mockery. The photo. Them laughing, raising champagne glasses. My daughter in the red dress I gave her last year. Her husband hugging her waist, his in-laws always so haughty, as if their mere presence blessed the scene. And there, in the corner of the picture, my granddaughter with the pearl necklace that had been mine, the one I saved for years waiting for the right moment to give her. They didn't tag me, didn't mention me, but I knew every one of them had eaten at my table, slept in my house, used my resources, my time, my back. And now? Not a message, not a call. I slid my finger across the screen, seeing other posts, the cruise, the excursions, the dinners, all perfectly documented, as if my absence was natural, as if I'd never existed. But I did exist. Oh, how I existed. I was the one who saved their credit when they were newlyweds, who sewed school costumes when they couldn't afford new ones, who got up at dawn to check if a fever had gone down. My daughter, my little girl, still uses my credit card. In fact, it was with that card that she paid the initial cruise deposit, just to secure the spot. Mom, I'll pay you back as soon as I get my bonus. A bonus that never arrived. And her husband, that man, asked me to co-sign a loan. He said it was to improve the house. It turned out to be for a car, the third he's bought in 5 years. All that passed through my desk, my accounts, my sleepless nights reviewing numbers. And now I was supposed to sleep alone. I got up around 3 a.m. and went to the kitchen. I made a cup of chamomile tea, like every night since I became a widow. The steam warmed my hands, but not my chest. I sat on the edge of the bed, the cup trembling slightly between my fingers. This is what I am to them. A wallet with legs, a shadow not even worth a birthday card. I didn't cry. At this point, tears seemed like a luxury. Instead, I felt something more powerful, an energy I didn't recognize. Rage, yes, but also clarity. That silence wasn't just forgetfulness, it was contempt. I didn't yet know what I'd do, but that night, for the first time in a long time, I gave myself permission to think about me. I was no longer the sacrificial mother, the helpful grandmother. As I sipped my chamomile and looked at the moon's reflection in the window, I promised myself something. I'd never beg again. If they knew how much I'd given and still chose to erase me, it was time to return the favor. And oh, they knew what they were doing. But what they didn't know is that I could play the silent game, too. That morning, as the water boiled for tea, I scanned the kitchen. Everything was in its place. The spice jars with their handwritten labels, the tablecloths I embroidered, the teapot my husband gave me for our last anniversary. It all spoke of me, my story, my care. Yet there I was, alone, as if I'd never been enough. When my daughter's father died, I thought the world was collapsing. We didn't have much, just enough. But I worked, I fought, I raised my daughter without asking anyone for anything. I paid for her college, got her first interviews, lent her money for her first car. When she married, I opened my home for them to stay a few months while they saved for their own. That was 5 years ago. 5. They never paid rent, never contributed to utilities. Yet every week another request came, disguised as a favor. Mom, can you cover the electricity this time? Oh, we fell behind on the car insurance. Could you? And I said yes, because that's what a mother does, right? That was the biggest lie I swallowed for years. That day, seeing the empty house, I opened the old desk drawer where I kept my important documents. I've always been organized folders with labels, envelopes marked with dates, habits from another era, perhaps, but they've saved me more than once. There was my blue finance folder. I slid it onto the table and opened it with steady hands, though my bones trembled inside. I started with the bank statements, a monthly transfer, always the same amount, going from my account to theirs. Since when? I flipped back through the pages month after month, year after year. For years. Over $40,000. And that wasn't all. There were the loan documents, the one they said was just for fixing the kitchen. Turns out, they didn't just use my name, they set it up so the payments came out of my account. Then I saw another paper, a banking power of attorney, signed by me, dated the same day they invited me to dinner because they had something important to tell me. It all made sense now. They weren't including me out of love, they were wrapping me up. I felt like an old puppet, strings tightly tied in their hands. What kind of mother signs without reading? This one, because I trusted. Because I thought if my daughter looked me in the eyes and said, "This is just in case something happens," there was no need to distrust. How naive I was. I screamed, not loudly, more like a whisper from my stomach, as if my body knew something my mind hadn't fully accepted. I stood, grabbed my contact folder, and dialed the bank. "Good morning," I said, feigning calm. "I need to make some changes." And that's how it began. If they made me believe for years that I couldn't manage without them, that day I proved otherwise. I could and I would. It took 2 hours, but I spoke to a manager. I explained my situation, asked to review all accesses. She asked if I'd signed the power of attorney. I said yes, but under pressure, that they never explained its scope. The voice on the other end softened, almost maternal. "Don't worry, ma'am," she said. "We'll fix this." I hung up and sat at the desk, the folder still open, papers scattered. I had found my truth in black ink on white paper, and that truth hurt. But it also liberated me. Because when a woman starts reviewing her own papers, her own numbers, she starts reviewing her life. And I was ready to do both. That afternoon, I went to the library, not for nostalgia, but because I needed a place to think uninterrupted. I sat at a back table where old lamps cast a soft, warm light. I took out my notebook and opened a computer. First, I searched how to revoke a signed banking power of attorney, then how to change shared account authorizations. I found many legal terms, but also something more valuable, experiences of other women, stories like mine, women who had given everything for their children, who had been erased from photos, plans, gratitude, and yet were rebuilding themselves with every written word. I noted everything: form names, email addresses, free legal aid numbers. Then I opened my email and wrote to the bank, requesting the removal of third-party access and asking how to transfer everything to a new account in my name only. The response came faster than expected. They asked for an in-person appointment, which I confirmed immediately. Then I logged into my insurance portal, changed beneficiaries, removed my daughter and her husband, and added my cousin Adela, the only one who sends me a Christmas card every year, though we live 3 states apart. Finally, I opened my will, the one I'd never wanted to touch because it scared me to face the fact that one day I wouldn't be here. But now I was more afraid of leaving everything in the wrong hands. I updated the details and wrote a note for my lawyer. When I finished, I sat in silence for a few more minutes, listening to the creak of the shelves, the distant sound of someone turning a book's pages. For the first time in years, I felt in control. I left the library with slow but firm steps. In the parking lot, I met Mrs. Blanca, a longtime neighbor. She greeted me with her usual smile and said, "How's everything, Dona Clara?" I almost cried, maybe because no one asked me that without an ulterior motive. "Better than you can imagine," I said. And it was true. That day, I understood that justice starts quietly, in small steps: changed passwords, sent emails, decisions made without announcement. I didn't need to take revenge with screams, just to put everything in its place. If they had decided to erase me from their lives, I could erase them from my future, not with anger, but with firmness. And the irony? While they toasted on a cruise, I was reclaiming my life, one password at a time. My appointment with the lawyer was a Thursday afternoon. I carried the documents in a leather folder I've kept for years, a gift from my husband for one of our anniversaries, when we still thought the hard times were over. The office was simple but orderly. A young woman at reception seemed so confident that I felt ashamed for a moment, standing there with my crumpled papers and trembling hands. But then she appeared, Mariana, a woman in her 30s with a firm but kind gaze. She introduced herself, offered me water, and invited me in. We sat face to face, and I handed her the documents one by one. I told her how I signed the power of attorney without understanding, how I paid loans that weren't mine, how I changed diapers and paid bills without asking for anything in return. She didn't interrupt, just nodded, took notes, and reviewed the papers. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then she looked me in the eyes and said, "Dona Clara, you have full control. You don't need anyone's consent to make changes. What's here is yours." Her words were like a balm. "Can I revoke what I signed?" I asked. "Not only can you should have already." I smiled, though everything hurt. Mariana explained the steps, drafted letters, gave clear instructions, and even reviewed my will, suggesting modifications to protect me further. "Would you like me to keep a copy of all this?" she asked at the end. "Yes," I said. "I want someone to have it in case someone tries to make me doubt again." She completed my thought, and in that moment, I felt something new, not happiness, but something older, more intimate. Power. Because after years of letting others decide for me, I had finally said enough, officially, legally, irreversibly. When I left that office, the air felt lighter. I walked a few blocks to a cafe and ordered a latte. I drank it alone by the window, watching people pass like characters in a movie where I'd finally taken the starring role. I didn't check my phone, didn't look for messages, didn't wait for apologies. I didn't need them to know I wasn't at fault. That young, direct lawyer reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I have rights, too. And that day, I claimed them one by one. The bank was 6 blocks from my house. I walked, not for economy, but for conviction. I wanted every step that day to be etched in my memory. I entered with my document folder under my arm, glasses on, and a determination I didn't know I had. A kind but nervous young man assisted me. He looked at me with the fearful respect young people have for women who don't tremble when they speak. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "I'm here to revoke accesses, close joint accounts, and register new transactions under my exclusive control." He opened his eyes slightly but nodded. He asked for my ID and documents. I handed him everything, perfectly organized. As he typed, I noticed his brow furrow. There are some automatic transfers here for large amounts. Are you sure you want to stop them? Absolutely sure. Because every dollar that left that account was a brick in the altar my daughter and her husband built on my generosity. We reviewed the statements, identified each additional card. Do you want to cancel them too? I knew they were still on the cruise. They'd posted a photo on the deck, cocktails in hand, toasting under a sunset. I was celebrating, too, in my own way. I set up notifications on my phone for every future transaction and closed the joint account, the one I'd opened in case they ever needed something urgently. That someday had lasted 5 years. They offered to open a new account, this time without co-signers, just me. I opened it, deposited everything from the old account, and changed my passwords. When it was done, the young man looked at me and said, "Anything else I can help with?" "Yes," I replied. "Please note that from today, no one can do anything in my name without my presence." He wrote it down, printed the receipts, and handed them to me. I left the bank with a thinner folder, fewer papers, but more freedom. That day, while they sailed through tropical islands thinking they had everything under control, I pulled the foundation out from under them. The best part? They wouldn't know yet. I let the cruise continue, their glasses keep clinking, because when they returned, the blow wouldn't be immediate, it would be precise, cold, legal, and absolutely just. The notification came while I was watering my plants. Transaction attempt declined. Card blocked due to lack of authorization. I smiled. My inbox filled in minutes. Urgent emails, messages with exclamation marks, missed calls. I sat on the garden bench, the hose still dripping at my feet, and watched their world crumble from mine. Apparently, when they docked in Cozumel, they tried to pay for a private excursion, swimming with dolphins, gourmet lunch, luxury transport. It cost nearly $1,500. Of course, they thought they'd use my card. Not anymore. First came the hotel's email. "Dear Madam, we regret to inform you that the provided card has been declined. We need an alternative payment method to complete the reservation." Then a message from my daughter. "Mom, is everything okay with the bank? There's a problem with your card. They're asking for another. Can you fix it?" Then the call. Her voice was strained, between tears and frustration. "Mom, there's an error. We can't pay. They won't let us leave the hotel. Can you call them?" I could have, but I didn't. I turned off the phone, went to the kitchen, made a cup of coffee, and sat by the window. I watched the birds fight over crumbs I'd left on the sill. I thought of the years I spent like one of those birds, pecking at their leftovers, grateful for scraps. No more. Another notification came later. New international ATM withdrawal attempt rejected. And another message. "Mom, please, it's urgent. We don't have cash. We can't stay here." This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Was it a misunderstanding to leave me alone on my birthday? To use my money as if it were theirs? No, it was a decision. So I made one too. I didn't respond. The power of silence is immense. That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. They were trapped in a paradise they couldn't leave, and I was finally escaping the hell they'd condemned me to for years. That morning, I went to the garden early, still in my robe, curls uncombed. The sun barely touched the earth, and the dew made the leaves glisten like crystal. I'd spent so many years caring for others that I'd forgotten how much I loved tending plants. My roses were still there, loyal, blooming whether anyone photographed them or not. Each had a name. The deep red was hope, the white was peace, the pale pink was dawn. I caressed a newly opened flower and breathed deeply. The scent was soft, clean, honest, an honesty I didn't find in my own family. My neighbor passed by the fence and waved. I offered her tomatoes. She thanked me with a smile I didn't have to question. As I watched her walk away with her cloth bag, I thought, this is what life feels like, owing nothing to anyone. No emails to answer, no cards to check, just the sound of water hitting the earth and my thoughts, which finally didn't hurt as much. Inside, the table was still set from my birthday, the clean tablecloth, the folded napkins. I'd left it that way out of habit, or maybe as a reminder. I sat in front of the empty plate, no longer with sadness, but with decision. I wouldn't erase the past, but I wouldn't keep cooking for ghosts either. I went to the pantry, took out my best jars, oregano, cinnamon, turmeric, labeled by hand years ago. I took a new one and wrote, in firm handwriting, freedom. I filled it with dried rose petals and placed it at the front. My own altar. I remembered a phrase my mother used to say when I was a child and felt invisible. Clara, when no one looks at you, look at yourself. And I did that afternoon, while they were likely begging for help at a luxury hotel's reception. I baked banana bread and took it to my neighbor Blanca. We sat in her kitchen, drank tea, and talked about small, real things. No one asked about cards, no one requested favors, no one feigned affection out of obligation, just two women with years on their shoulders and dignity intact. That night, I went to bed early, without pills, without crying, without fear. I slept with the window ajar and the jar of freedom on my nightstand. I understood something. While they thought I was their burden, I was learning to let go of them. The phone rang after 10 a.m. An unknown number. I hesitated for a second, but something in me said, now. Mrs. Clara Rios, a formal voice asked. Yes, speaking. We're calling from the Atlantic Cruise Billing Department. We have a reservation under Mrs. Fernanda Rios and her group. There was an issue with the initial payment method. Could you authorize an alternate card? His tone was polite, almost friendly. What kind of charges are they? I asked calmly. He listed them. Premium dining, duty-free purchases, spa services, private excursions. A figure that made me dizzy, not from the amount, but the impudence. I see, I said. And why are you calling me? A pause. Then he clarified, the registered card is in your name. You're listed as the backup contact. So I said, without stuttering or hesitation, I'm no longer responsible for those expenses. Please address the adults who made that trip. Silence. Long. I imagined him staring at his screen, searching for alternatives. Are you sure, ma'am? This could cause inconvenience to the passengers. I'm sure. And believe me, the inconvenience started long before that cruise. I ended the call with a thank you for your time. I sat for a moment, phone in hand. My heart pounded, but not from fear. It was pride. I had said no out loud, to a stranger, to a debt I would have paid without thinking before. And my voice didn't tremble. More messages came later. Fernanda, my daughter, Mom, they're holding us on the ship. They say we need a payment method to clear the account. Please do something. And one from her husband, you can't leave us like this. This is abuse. Help us, like always. Like always. 2 words that weighed on me for years, because like always meant I paid, I stayed silent. Not this time. I didn't respond. Instead, I took out my mother's recipe book, where she wrote her recipe for sweet empanadas with sugar and cinnamon. I made a batch and took them to the community center. In a small gathering, I shared them with women my age. One said, "You made these? They taste like childhood." I smiled, not from nostalgia, but because I'd cooked again for someone who expected nothing in return. That night, I went to bed without thinking of debts or bills. I slept with my phone on airplane mode. If they were still trapped at sea, so be it. I'd been trapped for years, and no one came to rescue me. I woke earlier than usual that morning, maybe because something inside me wouldn't let me stay still. I went to the bathroom, washed my face with cold water, and stood before the mirror. I hadn't looked at myself closely in years, always in passing, brushing my teeth, fixing my hair, rushing to solve someone else's life. But that morning I looked. Wrinkles on my forehead, marks by my mouth, the gray hairs I'd stopped dying long ago. I said, almost in a whisper, "You don't owe anyone anything." I repeated it, stronger. You don't owe anyone anything. Because for years, I confused love with sacrifice. I thought the more I gave, the more they'd love me. That love was bought with favors, loans, silences. And no, what they gave me wasn't love, it was an eternal debt wrapped in lukewarm hugs, a thank you, Mom, that only came when they needed something. I thought of birthdays without flowers, Mother's days with broken promises, all the times I sat at the table's end and felt pushed to a corner. And I asked myself, what kind of family only remembers you when they take your money? It wasn't hatred I felt. Not even resentment, it was clarity. I looked in the mirror again, touched my face, caressed the wrinkle by my right eye that I always said came from laughing too much. You're stronger than you think, I told myself. Because I survived my husband's death, raising a child alone, being used without even a thank you. And yet, here I was, standing. That morning, I dressed in my favorite light blue blouse with daisy embroidery. I made a full breakfast, unhurried, with no one asking for something between bites. As I spread jam on my bread, I understood. I wasn't the one who should feel guilty. They took advantage of my love, squeezed it dry, thinking it would never run out. But it did. And the woman in the mirror was no longer a victim, she was a witness and a survivor. I returned to Mariana's law office, this time not with doubts, but with a plan. I carried a small bag, but inside was my entire will, literally. "How's everything, Dona Clara?" she asked as I walked in, ready to close chapters. I said, "Let's review the will." We read it aloud, line by line. She made the corrections I requested. There'd be no room for misunderstandings, traps, or indignant daughters demanding inheritances as if they were a birthright. I decided my house, which they considered ours by habit, would go to a foundation for low-income single mothers. My savings would fund scholarships for girls studying nursing. And my cousin Adela, yes, the one who sends me handmade Christmas cards every December without fail, though no one replies, would be included. "Are you sure about this?" Mariana asked. "As sure as I am that I won't pay another cent for toasts I wasn't invited to." Mariana smiled. She knew I wasn't just talking about the cruise. Then I handed her a brown envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A recording. A video. I made it yesterday. If they try to contest my will or say I wasn't in my right mind, I want you to show it." She placed it in a special folder. "What does the video say?" Enough. That I was lucid, that it was my decision, that I owe nothing in death to those who forgot me in life. She stored everything carefully, as if she knew those papers were worth more than any fortune. "Dona Clara, I'll be honest," she said at the end. "I've never met someone so determined." "Neither have I replied. "But it took me 70 years to get here. I left that office like someone who'd finished building a wall, not to trap pain, but to protect the peace that had cost me so much." On my way home, I stopped at a stationery store and bought a new notebook, not for pending tasks, but because, for the first time in years, I felt I had a new story to start, one without pleas, emotional loans, or apologies written by me and signed by others. That afternoon, I made a cup of hot chocolate, turned on the reading lamp, and opened the notebook to the first page. I wrote one sentence: "Everything I have now, I have, owing nothing to anyone." I left it open on the table, in case someone ever wants to know when I realized I was free. And if they try to silence my voice, I've already recorded that this story, mine, won't be told their way. That night, in my pajamas with a chamomile infusion on the nightstand, the phone rang. The same number as always. The name, too, Fernanda, daughter. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th, I answered, yes. Her voice was a mix of sobs, pleas, and fear. "Mom, please, they're holding us. They say if we don't pay the full bill, we can't leave the ship. The cards won't go through. We have no cash. I don't know what to do." I swallowed, turned slightly in bed, and looked at the photo on the wall, the one from my birthday, the one I took myself, the cake untouched, the signs still hanging. "And how much do you owe?" I asked, unhurried. "Almost $3,000. "But Mom, if you just call and authorize the card." No, a single word, clear, dry, final. The silence on the other end grew thick. What did I say? "No, Fernanda. How can you do this to us? We're your family." Family. I got up and walked to the kitchen, turned on the light, and took a glass of water. "Let me tell you what family is, Fernanda. Family isn't the ones who go on a cruise on their mother's birthday. Family isn't the ones who forget to call, who use someone else's card without permission. It was a mistake, Mom. Just a misunderstanding. No, it was a decision. And I've made mine too. Mom, please." Her voice broke. The crying was real this time, pure panic. "I'm with the kids. I can't do this alone. I was alone for years, raising you, funding your entire life. So if you can do something now, do it. Learn to pay your own expenses." I walked back to my room. "Mom, this isn't fair." "No, it isn't. And now you're the one feeling it. I hung up and stood in the middle of the room. Not a tear, not a tremble in my hands. The silence returned, but this time it didn't hurt. It was peace, because in that call, I finally decided how the conversation ended. It was my neighbor's daughter who told me. She worked on the cruise ship. I met her on the street, carrying a grocery bag. She greeted me shyly and whispered, "Did you hear what happened with Fernanda and her family?" I looked at her. Did they have to clean bathrooms? They couldn't disembark without paying, so the ship offered a deal. Work for the debt. They had to scrub floors, wash clothes, clean cabins. A whole week. I didn't respond, just nodded and kept walking. That afternoon, I heard hurried footsteps at my door. Before I could reach it, they were inside. Fernanda, red-eyed, voice breaking, anger rising like smoke. How could you? How could you leave us there, like we're nothing? Behind her, her husband, silent for once in his life. You know what we went through. Is that fair? After all we've done for you. I stood in the middle of the living room, in front of the dried-out birthday cake still in the fridge. All you've done for me? I asked calmly. She stepped back, but didn't stop. We're your family. Yes, the same family that left me alone on my birthday, that went on a trip with my money, that used me like an endless bank account. You're our mother. You can't abandon us like this. I looked at her, slow and cold. And you? How could you abandon me first? Because that's what you did. You erased me, replaced me. Her mouth opened, but no words came. While you were toasting, I was gathering my dignity. And I'm not giving it away again. Her face shifted from anger to guilt to fear. You humiliated us. No, you humiliated yourselves. I just stopped covering for you. An awkward silence fell. Her husband lowered his head. She did, too, eventually. What now? She asked. Now, nothing. It's over. I turned, took my teacup, and they stood there, diminished. That day, they finally met a woman who was no longer afraid. I drove to their house, not because I wanted to see them, but because I had something to deliver in person. I parked in front of the garden I once helped plant. The wilted flowers and peeling paint told me everything I needed to know. Without my money, their world was crumbling. Fernanda came to the door before I knocked. She was waiting, arms crossed, face hard as stone. Are you here to finish humiliating us? I raised an eyebrow, didn't bother to answer, and handed her the envelope. She took it with trembling hands. What's this? Copies of every mortgage payment I made for you over the last 4 years. Month by month, amount by amount. Her face paled as she skimmed the papers. You're saying the house was legally yours until today? Why are you giving it to me? Because I don't want anything tying me to you anymore. Her husband appeared behind her. Seeing the envelope, he stepped back, knowing instantly what it meant. You're leaving us on the street? No. I'm giving you your independence. That's what you wanted, right? To be a family without me. But we don't have the means to keep this. That's no longer my problem. I turned and walked back to my car without looking back. Mom, Fernanda shouted. I stopped but didn't turn. You wanted me to stay quiet, to not bother, to not get in the way. Well, I have. That's not how it is. Yes, it is. And now, my daughter, I wish you the same thing you gave me. Silence. I got in the car and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw them standing on the porch, clutching papers heavier than any punishment. And I knew I'd given them exactly what they deserved, their own lives, without crutches. Now let them learn to walk. 3 days later, the sign appeared in their yard, foreclosure notice. A cruel white rectangle staked in front of what was once my guarantee they'd be okay. But I was no longer anyone's guarantor. Blanca, my neighbor, told me in passing. They put up the sign. Did you know? I nodded. She said no more, she knew she didn't need to. I sat in my rocking chair, the warm sun caressing my legs, and looked at my calm garden. The phone rang again. Messages from Fernanda. Mom, please, just this once. Help us not lose the house. I'm begging you. Then her husband. It's not fair. You have the money. Why do this to us? And the gem. Mom, his parents say this is our mess and want nothing to do with it. They've turned their backs on us. I laughed alone. Ironic, isn't it? That beautiful family they toasted with on the cruise now washed their hands of them. And there they were, finally alone, as I had been so many times. I didn't respond to any messages, not because I had nothing to say, but because I'd said it all. My silence was my final statement. I closed my phone, went to the kitchen, and made a lavender infusion. I needed more than peace, I wanted rest. And I had it. That night, I slept 8 hours straight, no shocks, no debts, no anguish. I didn't even dream, just slept, like someone who'd finally shed a decades-long burden. They kept sending messages throughout the day. By dusk, another, we don't know where to go. We just wanted to be okay. Mom, please. I didn't answer, because love isn't a chain, and forgiveness isn't bought with last-minute pleas. They'd counted on my silence for years, but now that silence was their answer and my freedom.